Hi friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Zoe PNG, and in today's video, I'm going to be doing part 2 of my 30-day drawing challenge. Following part 1, I just continued my daily sketching as per usual. On day 11, I used an acrylic marker and a watercolor brush to create these sketches, which was really fun and new. Day 12, I did this really fun sort of comic book style on this spread. I did this face, and then I did a sort of fan art of Pokemon, which was kind of a fun guilty pleasure. Going into day 13, I was feeling extremely inspired. I totally was not up all night on Pinterest looking at inspiration. I've been kind of doing that a lot recently, especially during this challenge, since I feel like it's brought out a lot of creativity within me. Anyways, I saw this really cool drawing of a playing card, and then I also saw a reference photo of some 4-leaf clovers, and the wheels in my brain just started turning. The idea came right to me. I was just envisioning this playing card, the 4 of clubs, inspired by these 4-leaf clovers. That is exactly what I did. I woke up the next morning extremely determined to get this painting done, and I feel like it turned out pretty well. I really love the colors that it came out with, and I think that it was just an extremely inspiring day for me. So I knew I wanted to execute this idea through painting. I knew that the style I was envisioning in my head would work really well with my gouache style, particularly like my more illustrative style. I've done this sort of style before with like plants and doing like a very whimsical vibe and having the stems of the plants kind of intertwining with each other and flowing. So I knew that's exactly what I wanted to do to like fill up the space and kind of encapsulate and frame the clovers really beautifully. I also knew that I wanted to do a frame on the playing card, since that's what I had seen in the drawing that I found on Pinterest. The person who had drawn it, they had done this really cool like frame around their illustration, and then the playing card numbers on the outside. But yeah, so I knew I wanted to do that. I always do, the checkerboard, light dark back and forth, which is kind of, I guess, a cop-out, but obviously like I didn't have a lot of time. Like, I'm not spending hours and hours and hours on this, so I just did something simple, something I knew I could do. Either way, I'm still really happy with the outcome of this illustration and painting. I had really fun with it, and I feel like that's really all that matters. But once finishing the painting, I did kind of feel a little bit off about it. Although like I do really love the outcome, I feel like there is something small that's just missing. I feel like there is kind of still a little bit of blank space going on here that I'm not super happy with. I think either I was thinking maybe filling in the background behind the clovers with a pale yellow or something, but I wasn't really sure, so I'm not 100% on that, so I didn't do anything more. I might end up going back to it later and fixing that small detail, but for right now I'm really happy with it, and I don't have like an immense urge that I need to change it or fix it, so it's not that big of a deal. It's also a reminder to myself that, all of these sketches can't be perfect. I gotta let go of that perfectionism, and even though I might not be 100% happy with something, it's still good enough. While doing this playing card illustration, it kind of really got me thinking on what else I could do in this style, and I was kind of inspired to maybe do some tarot cards, and I feel like that would be really fun and just kind of help me branch out a little bit and just try something new. On day 14, I did these sketches of houses. I thought they were really fun. I'm definitely more pleased with the one on the right, particularly because of the black ink. I wasn't really a big fan of the orange ink. I felt like it just kind of muted everything and didn't look that great. Now, day 15 has probably sort of been one of my favorite thus far. I did a collage again, which was so fun. I did these figs and then I did a little sketch of the figs on the other side, and the composition, it just really makes me so happy. So for the next recording session, I wanted to do something that was more on the still life side, since I haven't really done any of those since being in school. I wanted to kind of make sure I was still able to do that, since I will be back in school in about a week, which is kind of scary and intimidating, but that also means school content and school videos, so that's also really exciting. Anyways, back to the drawing. I found this reference of this little teapot and I thought it was so cute, especially the yellow, so I wanted to recreate that and do some acrylic markers and then some pencil crayons on top. And then of course I had to get some foliage in there, you know. Who am I without some foliage? I love a good leaf or flower or anything of the sorts, so I did a little rose popping out of the stem of the teapot. I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit worried about this sketch. Like the beginning parts of it were a bit suspicious to me. They didn't look all that great, especially with the really flat colors. I was just really craving that dimension and it wasn't there yet, but I had to trust the process and just continue with it. And I did, and I feel like it turned out a lot better than I thought it would. However, I do want to say that I don't like these pencil crayons. They are just not cutting it. They suck. They are not pigmented enough for my liking. I find I have to press so hard down on the paper, and to a point where my drawings will sometimes transfer on the other side, and I find that really annoying. So if you guys have any recommendations for better pencil crayons, that would be great. So I did want to do a little check-in at the halfway point, which is now. I just wanted to say that I've been feeling really great since doing this middle part of the challenge, the next 10 days, I guess. But it's been a lot smoother this week. I felt like the first week or the first 10 days was really tough. I was really struggling just to open my sketchbook every day. I think mostly it was because I was trying to film every day, which wasn't super realistic, but this week has been so smooth, so easy, and I've honestly been really enjoying just, a little sketch right before bed, and I feel like that has been really nice and soothing for me. Yeah, it's just been a really great way to, wind down the day and finish up and feel completed. I've also just been feeling, like I said at the beginning of the video, just so much more inspired since starting this challenge. I feel like a lot of creativity has come out from it, and I feel so grateful for that. On day 17, I really wanted to do some more landscapes. They are really starting to grow on me, and I'm really starting to enjoy the process of doing them. So I did these few little ones in a hatching style, which I really enjoyed. On day 18, I was feeling inspired to try and do the acrylic marker landscape again. I had someone comment on part 1 what they thought kind of went wrong, and I totally agree. They were kind of saying that I was just using too many of the same shade all in one place, so they told me that I needed to make the lighter shades in the background and bring the darker shades to the foreground. So I thought that was some really great advice, and I needed to just really channel that and try again. I was really determined going into this one as well. I made sure to swatch down my colors first and even do 2 thumbnails to kind of figure out where I wanted to put the colors before I just jumped right into it and were putting the colors all down willy-nilly like I was before. I definitely realized that you kind of do need to put more thought into a landscape than I thought you needed to, which is kind of funny. I thought it would just be super easy and simple. I did also do an extra mock-up on my iPad just because I wasn't 100% sure on the colors just quite yet. I wanted to make the sky blue, but the blue that I had in the acrylic marker was still too dark for my liking. So I did end up using a water-based marker only for that part, just to make it a little bit lighter than everything else, since that is what I was going for with the advice that I was given, is making the background much lighter and then bringing the foreground darker. I also made sure this time around I chose a reference that accompanied this work and style of drawing, making sure that there were parts in the foreground of the study that were dark and then the background was lighter. I felt like that made it a lot more simple, especially for me. In the other landscape, I definitely found that I had a lot of trouble because I felt like in the reference photo, the foreground, midground, and background all kind of just blended in together, and I had a really hard time kind of differentiating everything from each other. So I will say this time around I definitely improved on that. One thing I do wish I did differently in this drawing was on those background mountains, I did a blue shadow. On my thumbnail, I did try out 2 different shadow colors. I did a blue and then I did a purple. I thought, okay, yes, the blue, it's going to contrast well with the orange, but looking back on it, I think the purple would have been way better. On day 19, I had originally planned to do something different than what I'm actually drawing here. I was trying to do this sketch, and you know how sometimes it goes where you're trying and still it doesn't turn out, you're erasing, you're redrawing, and still the proportions aren't right. Instead of continuing to mess with it and frustrate myself, I decided to just move on. I can always do that sketch, that idea another time. So I moved on to something I knew was simple and easy and have a good time doing, since I won't be stressing myself out over trying to get the proportions of a certain sketch perfect. So on the whim, I decided to do this small still life of these avocados, and I'm using these water-based Tombow markers, which I love. They are really great and layer really well, honestly. I definitely want to invest in getting some more of these markers, especially some of the colors that I'm missing. I definitely noticed that I'm always trying to grab for a lighter, more earthy tone green, which I don't necessarily have. I have a darker one, but not a lighter one. And then of course I don't have any browns, which sometimes can be an issue when you're trying to do a drawing like this one where you have the pit of an avocado. This isn't necessarily a huge issue for me, since as you can see later in the video, I end up using different colors to layer and get that brown tone, but sometimes, it's a bit nice to have an easy access to certain colors. So as you can see, to get that brown, I started first with a really light yellowy orange, and then I layered a peach on top of that, and then I layered sort of lilac purple, and then afterwards I layered a bluish purple to get some of those shadows. It's a pretty simple method once you understand color theory to a certain extent. You first really just start with the undertones that you see, so that's sort of the highlight. So in this certain example, the highlight was sort of yellowy since it was bouncing off of that green of the avocado. And then you would want to layer with a contrasting color. So the contrasting color of a yellow would be purple. So again, that's why I layered a purple. And then I also layered a peach, so the contrasting color to a peachy orange would be a blue. Afterwards, when I went in with the ballpoint pens, just to add a little bit extra dimension and color, I layered red ballpoint pen and then a blue ballpoint pen. This is definitely one of my favorite methods of drawing, especially with those water-based markers, since you can layer them so well. It sort of feels like you're painting with them, and overall I just really love the effect, diversity, and range that it gives. Although day 19 was pretty simple and not too out there for me, I definitely think it was still one of my favorites. On day 20, I really wanted to do another portraiture, especially since the first day of this challenge, I did a portrait of Joel from The Last of Us. I thought it would be more than fitting to draw Ellie on day 20. This was definitely a very heavy pleasure-based drawing since I don't do a lot of fan art and I feel like sometimes it can box you in a little bit, but I always love to do it anyways. Sometimes, you gotta kind of give in to those guilty pleasures, and I just couldn't hold back, especially when there are such amazing characters like Ellie and Joel from such an amazing game like The Last of Us. Honestly, really enjoy the story of the game. I think it's so complex and interesting, and I really enjoy the character development that comes with it. I did have a little bit of a hard time with this drawing, and I know I'm not the only one that has a lot of troubles drawing well-known characters and celebrities. It's difficult to draw them because their characteristics are so well known, and that makes it very easy and distinguishable when someone messes them up. Like, for example, there was a trend going around a little while ago where people were like, oh my god, no one can draw Zendaya, no one can get her features right. And yeah, it's hard to get those features perfectly exact, especially when you're seeing these celebrities' faces every day. It's so easy to figure out when someone's drawn it wrong. And so that's why I kind of stay away from fan art and celebrity drawings, because I don't want to mess up and I don't want that uncanny look. But then again, when you don't do them and you don't practice these sort of portraits, it doesn't help. You never get better at it. So I do still want to practice it like I am here and try my best, even if it's not perfect, even if there are some features that aren't right or aren't perfect. I want to be okay with that and practice it so that in the future I can do portraiture better. And I've definitely noticed on my part sort of stepping away from portraiture because I do find it really hard, and I feel like that's sort of cowardly because it's hard and I shouldn't put it off because of that. I should work on it because of that. I know that working on portraiture and sort of practicing it more will help my art evolve. However, I do just have a hard time getting myself to do it because it's hard, but I just need to push myself and really get into that mindset of bettering myself. So maybe this can be a goal for the last third of this challenge. I can try to do a few more portraitures and hopefully get more into the groove of doing them. This Ellie drawing was honestly really fun. I had such a good time just being familiar with a character and the person that I am drawing and knowing their story and knowing the emotion that comes with it. This definitely helps with making decisions for a drawing a lot easier, especially when you know what goes on in the story. You can revolve those decisions around that character. So, for example, I added in her tattoo and then also the lyrics of Future Days because those are such profound moments in her story that really shape her as a person. And it also gives insight into who this person is, who this portrait is of. And I really enjoyed making those connections along the way of drawing this and making the spread really Ellie focused. Overall, I just had such a great time doing it, and so it kind of gets me wanting to do it more, which is obviously the goal of this. So hopefully I will get into doing some more characters and other people that I really love. So coming to the end of this video, I am very happy with the outcome of this week and the last 10 days that I've done. I feel like my creativity has grown and I have just become a lot more attached to my sketchbook and wanting to actually draw in it. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. I'll see you next week with part 3.